Of course, over the course of the last week, we have been doing the NFL predictions. We've already taken care of the AFC East, the AFC West, the NFC East, and the NFC West. Today, we're going to be going over maybe the toughest region, maybe outside of the West in all of football, the AFC North and the NFC North. But let's not waste any time. Let's get right to maybe along with the AFC West. Who knows? Equally the toughest division in the AFC, the AFC North. And I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning this division at 11-6. Yes, over the Baltimore Ravens at 10-7. Listen, last year the Bengals won 9 games with the worst defense of all time, potentially. And Lou Anarumo is not there anymore. Al Gordon, the former Notre Dame defensive coordinator, is there. I think it's impossible for the Bengals to have a worse defense than they had a year ago. I mean, they watched 5 games where they scored over 35 points. And going by that logic, and Zach Taylor playing his guys in the preseason, the Bengals know they have to get off to a hot start. And the first 2 games they have this year is at the Browns and home against Jackson. They need to start 2-0. If they start 0-2, the train is going to fall off the tracks. 1-1, maybe a little dicey, especially if they lose week 1 of their division rival in Cleveland against the Browns. But I don't know, man. You tell me Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Jochen Bosch. I like Chase Brown, the running back who replaced Joe Mixon, I thought, nicely a year ago. I'm more of a fan than Zach Taylor than most. I think he constantly finds a way to get the most out of his offense. That's what he should be doing as an offensive-minded head coach. And you give me this Bengals roster, man, it's hard for me to say that they are not a top 2-3 team in the league. I mean, I don't know. They're pretty much the same team to me that went to the Super Bowl. I know it's Super Bowl 56. I know it's 4 years ago. But I thought they were arguably a bad illegal contact away from beating the Rams and Joe Burrow with a terrible offensive line from winning the Super Bowl. And we can have this debate between Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I have always said I personally think I have Joe Burrow ahead of Lamar Jackson just because of Joe Burrow's ability to throw from in the pocket, which I think matters more in the NFL, even more than with your legs, even though obviously mobility does matter a lot in today's NFL. But they're going to have a, third place schedule. They finished third unbelievably in this division. I don't know. It's hard for me to say the Bengals are not a playoff team. And I do think we're going to get a little bit of regression out of the Baltimore Ravens, who do have one of the hardest schedules in the league. I mean, they got to go to Green Bay in week 17. Then after that, they got to go to Pittsburgh in week 18. They don't play Cincinnati until Thanksgiving night, which is in Baltimore. But then they got to go to Cincinnati 2 weeks after that. They play the entire NFC North, as does every team in this division, and they do play the entire AFC East as well. So, is there a scenario where Baltimore goes on their regular season run like they do? Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, seems like they figured that out midway through the season, and then we're just saying, the Ravens are 2-3 seed, depending on who they play in the postseason, right? With whether it's Buffalo or Kansas City, can they finally get over the hump? Is that a scenario? Yes. But I do think, again, the Mark Andrews situation, he's still on the team, but he was heavily rumored to be traded for the entire offseason. It just does feel like I'll go with the Bills for a while. The Ravens and Bills are in a very similar situation. It's just Baltimore is in a way better division, in my opinion, which is Super Bowl or bust. Can they finally get through either each other or, in Buffalo's case, obviously, even more than Baltimore, because Baltimore seemingly can't get past Buffalo in the postseason. Lamar's 0-2 against Josh Allen in that scenario. Can they get past their arch rival, get back to the Super Bowl for Baltimore for the first time since 2012? We know their defense is always going to be good. We know Lamar Jackson's good. Zay Flowers is a very good receiver. I'm interested to see how they use the Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely pairing at tight end, whether Isaiah Likely becomes their number one tight end the way it looked like he was going to last year, week one, and do we sort of disappear after that big game against the Chiefs week one? I don't know. I'm just interested in the Ravens this year. Bengals always play them tough. I think they split this year instead of them sweeping Cincinnati, which I think is the difference in the Bengals winning the division. Then, as I've said about the Steelers all offseason, the only question I have for them is do they go 9-8 or 8-9? It's very plausible. Aaron Rodgers becomes the first quarterback to end Mike Tomlin his first losing season, which would just be LOL and poetic justice for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the Jets with a better organization. Yes, they bring over Darius Slade from the Eagles. They do have Joey Porter, who I think is a very good young developing corner. And yet they trade away Minka Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. And I feel like they needed more of a safety than a corner, and they gave Jalen Ramsey $21 million a year. And the Steelers have been the same since 2016 when they last won a playoff game when they beat Matt Moore and the Miami Dolphins. We're going to spend a lot on defense, which they already spent again on Jalen Ramsey and TJ Watt. They made him, $42 million a year, the highest paid defensive lineman in the league, $1 million over Myles Garrett, who we'll get to here in a second. And we're going to play Rolodex with quarterback and old Ben Roethlisberger, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Duck Bleeping Hodges, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Now I guess Aaron Rodgers. And we're going to run the ball. They did get rid of Najee Harris. We know they bring in Jonnu Smith, who Arthur Smith absolutely loves. Had him at Tennessee. Had him in Atlanta. We know DK Metcalf, basically a more talented George Pickens. But the Steelers keep drafting offensive line, and their offensive line keeps being below average. Will Aaron Rodgers trust the offensive line to get DK Metcalf down the field more? And we know Aaron Rodgers is not like to turn the football over, so is he going to throw a lot of balls in the dirt? And the Jets had a very talented defense. They had a very talented number one wide receiver. They had a very talented young running back. Now, I do think Pat Freiermuth is better than the tight end the Jets had. And they had a defensive minded head coach. And what did it lead them to? 5 wins, because Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback that some people think he is, which is still a top 5, 7, 10 quarterback in the league. No, Aaron Rodgers is right there with Brock Purdy. He's about an average quarterback, and it's not going to change my mind. Aaron Rodgers has not had a good NFL season since he won the 2021 NFL MVP, and they watched the San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo, if you remember, in that cold, snowy divisional round game. That's the last good season we saw out of Aaron Rodgers. I am not buying into the Steelers the way I bought into the Jets. It's a way harder division also than the AFC East. I mean, New England was terrible for years. The Dolphins were nothing to be afraid of. The only team they had to deal with in the AFC East was Buffalo. Now you've got to deal with Baltimore, Cincinnati, and as bad as Cleveland may be, we know they always play the Steelers tough, especially in Cleveland. So I'm not buying Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not. The Steelers are a whatever team to me. If they do make the playoffs, they'll be eliminated in the wild card round like they typically always are. Now, for my hometown team, the Cleveland Browns, who, if you guys heard my thoughts on Shedeur Sanders' first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, you will know that I believe Shedeur Sanders right now is the best quarterback on the Browns roster. I think he's absolutely better than Kenny Pickett. I think he's absolutely better than Joe Flacco. And I've said it, and you can say it's unfair. I don't care. He's a lefty. He's small. He looks like a college quarterback. He looks like basically a smaller Tim Tebow to me. I'm not a fan of Dylan Gabriel. I don't think he fits Kevin Stefanski's system at all. And I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. And the Browns had the weirdest draft I've ever seen. So many people wanted them to take Travis Hunter. They did not. They traded back. They took Mason Graham, who could turn out to be a very good defensive lineman. I thought he was the best interior defensive lineman in the draft. When you pay Myles Garrett $40 million a year to get double teamed basically every play, Mason Graham better produce. Well, let me put it that way. Carson Swivenger, who's an outside linebacker at UCLA. A lot of the Browns people like him. They think he's very smart. I don't know how impactful he's going to be. They took two running backs. Dylan Sampson, I really like out of the backfield. I think he's going to be really explosive, but right now he's behind Jerome Ford on the depth chart. Why, I don't know. The Quinyon Junkin situation coming out of the draft has been very strange, obviously. And, the two quarterback situation, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And if you're going to start Joe Flacco, I know the first 6 games are going, obviously. We know. Bengals, at Ravens, Packers, at Lions, Vikings in London, at Pittsburgh. It's very well going to be potentially 0-6. And they're like, oh, we don't want to put Shedeur Sanders out there because we don't want him to get thrown to the wolves. Most quarterbacks nowadays do get thrown to the wolves. And if you're mentally tough the way Shedeur Sanders is, like Bryce Young was in Carolina, even if you get benched, you come back more mentally tough than ever. And so to me, the only reason to give optimism for this Browns team is that they start Shedeur Sanders from the jump. If that is the case, I have them at 7 wins, which is why I said the Dolphins could be one of the worst teams in the NFL in the AFC, because I think if the Browns do start Shedeur Sanders week 1, the Dolphins will be the worst team in the conference. But I have a feeling here they're going to go with Joe Flacco. It's going to be very boring. Who did not play that great, in my opinion, when he was in Cleveland in 2023. Took the Browns for a magic carpet ride to the playoffs in a pretty easy schedule, then got annihilated by rookie C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. He did not play that well in Indianapolis either a year ago. And to me, again, I'll keep saying it, Shedeur Sanders is the only reason for optimism for this team. And I know many Browns fans think Kevin Stefanski's safe and Andrew Berry's safe. And I don't know what this organization is doing. Let's get to the NFC North, which is a very interesting division this year. So I have the Packers easily winning this division, if you guys can tell if you're watching on video, at 13-4. Listen, I think the Packers, they finished 3rd in the division last year. They made the playoffs. They won 11 games and finished 3rd in the division. So they get a 3rd-place schedule, and they upgrade at wide receiver. I think what they need is a wide receiver 1 to take this offense over the top. I think the Lions, losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn is a huge deal. And again, they've been through an emotional toll where 2 years ago they blew the lead in the NFC Championship. Last year they get humiliated by Gene Daniels at home as the number 1 seed in the divisional round. I do think there's a little bit of a pushback. I think Ben Johnson, along with Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, Mike Vrabel from Jerome Mayo, at least in the NFC, is the biggest head coaching upgrade in the conference. I think Caleb Williams is going to get right back to it in year 2. He's going to look more like the Caleb Williams we saw at USC. I think Ben Johnson's going to run the Bears like a professional organization as they finally pivot to the offensive side of the ball. And the Vikings, with J.J. McCarthy and those weapons, I don't know how good they're going to be. They're certainly not going to be 14-3 good. But they're not a bad football team by any means. So all that combination makes this division really good. But again, I think Green Bay, the Matthew Golden addition out of Texas, I think is going to be huge for them. Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark and, those guys on defense, I think are going to be healthy. They were banged up a year ago. And I just think the Packers have a pretty easy schedule. For the most part, all their tough games are at home. They do take on the NFC East. They get both the Commanders and the Eagles at home, which again alludes to my point. So I think Green Bay is in line to have a very good year. And spoiler alert here, I think it's an incredible year for Jordan Love. Now again, the Lions. I have them as a playoff team at 11-6. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with the 2 new coordinators. Their roster, though, their offensive line's right up there with the Eagles, is easily the best offensive line in the league. I think it's better than the offensive line the Dallas Cowboys had in their heyday. The Frank Ragnow retirement worries me, especially right before camp. Not ideal. So I think it could be a little bit of a slow start for this Lions team, and they pick it up, midway through this season. For the Bears, is there a bigger upgrade in head coach, I already said in the conference, than Ben Johnson? Not only that, but along with the weapons they already had of DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, they add Colston Loveland out of Michigan, who some people thought was better than Tyler Warren. I thought it was close, the two best tight ends in this draft. They had Reisner, the center from Atlanta. They had Joe Tooney, the left guard from Kansas City. They had the guy Mason, the right guard from the Los Angeles Rams. They vastly improved the interior of their offensive line. They add a tight end. Dennis Allen comes over to the Saints, who may not have been a head coach. Actually, he was one of the worst head coaches in the league. But he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Oh, like I talked about with Matt Eberflus going from Chicago to Dallas, where they're not head coaches, but they're very good coordinators. And Caleb Williams has struggled in camp. I acknowledge it's been rough. And the Bears worry. And maybe it's true that Caleb Williams turns into Trevor Lawrence and he's just overhyped. That's very possible. But I think with Ben Johnson's coaching, the Bears' leadership, this team was in a lot of games last year. They folded at the end of the year. I think this is easily a double your win total team. So maybe I'm wrong on them being 10-7 and being a playoff team. I want to finally be optimistic for this Bears team, but they're at least going to get to 8 wins. And then the Vikings, I think last year was a fluke. I think it got proven when they got destroyed week 18 against the Lions, and then Matthew Stafford and the Rams took them apart in the wild card playoff team. Sam Darnold turned back into a pumpkin. They needed to move on from Sam Darnold. Now, the Vikings have reportedly been propping up J.J. McCarthy in training camp. It has reportedly not gone great. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow start. Justin Jefferson said be patient. And Brian Flores is a very good defensive coordinator. I thought he did so with not a ton of talent on the defense side of the ball a year ago. But I think the Vikings are closer to like a 7-8 win team, especially with the upgrades from Chicago, than they are a 14-win team. Again, I think they have enough weapons and talent on the offense side of the ball to win 7, 8, even 9 games maybe. But I don't see this team being a playoff team at all, in my opinion. I think out of all the quarterbacks, as much as I like J.J. McCarthy, I think of all the quarterbacks in the division, he is clearly fourth, and that's why they're placed fourth. Arguably, you could make a case for Bo Nix. It's between him and Geno Smith, obviously, in the AFC West, but you get my point. As much as we like these guys, this division is way too tough. So, to recap here, let me go and make that order bigger for you if you're watching on video. In the AFC so far, I have Buffalo 14-3 as the number 1 seed. I have the Chiefs at 11-6. 13-4, as the number 2 seed. In the wild card, I have the Chargers at 11-6. I have the Raiders at 10-7. We have added now 2 more playoff teams in the AFC. We have added the Cincinnati Bengals as a division winner at 11-6. We had added the Ravens at 10-7 as a wild card team. What this means is this. There will be 1 playoff team out of the AFC South. That is obviously the division winner. That division winner will take on the Los Angeles Chargers in the wild card round. The wild card matchups also will include 2 divisional matchups in the AFC, with the Baltimore Ravens going to Cincinnati and a rematch of Week 18, though this time would take place in Kansas City instead of Las Vegas, between the Raiders and the Chiefs. In the NFC, same deal. The Eagles at 13-4, the Packers at 13-4 as your 1 and 2 seeds, the Rams at 11-6 as your number 3 seed. We've added 2 more wild card teams in addition to the Arizona Cardinals, who All right, 10-7 as the 7 seed. We have the Lions at 11-6, the 5 seed. We have the Bears at 10-7 as the 7 seed. So we're gonna have we are going to have, one playoff team out of each of the AFC South and the NFC South. For the NFC, in the wild card, we're going to be having the Chicago Bears take on the Green Bay Packers. 7-2 matchup. We will see who will make it out of the NFC side and where the division standings have to see who will be the seeding for the wild card matchups on Thursday. So again, we're going to have 2 more playoff teams. We're going to have the division winner from the AFC South, the division winner from the NFC South. On the AFC side, right now, my 2 new playoff teams are the Bengals and the Raiders. They replace the Steelers and the Broncos in their own divisions. On the NFC side, my new playoff teams are the Cardinals and the Bears. The Bears replace the Vikings. The Cardinals replace the Commanders. So we'll see where my AFC and NFC South predictions lie on Thursday.
Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.